So on this channel, I get a lot of recommendations from a lot of people on places to visit and museums to go to. And I don't know if I've received as many requests to visit a place as I have this spot right here. This is the Overloon Museum in the Netherlands. And I've heard so many things about this museum that while in the Netherlands, just had to go. Here with Andrew Biggio of the Rifle. We've got 3 World War II veterans who are going to be doing a signing here today. Also got Eric back here, my buddy Paul from Germany, and Sander from Sander VK History. So anyway, they're actually going to let us in a little bit early. And we're going to take a look around and see what they have here in this museum. All right, we just got into the museum here, and one of the things that I've been completely amazed at as I've been touring around the Netherlands and going to a few of the different cities is the sheer volume of bicycles in this country. So it's quite appropriate that as we enter into the Overloon Museum, the first big display that they have are all of these bicycles. Now these are German bicycles from the Second World War. Again, I've never been here before. So I don't know exactly what to expect. It looks like we're kind of walking through the war starting in 1940 and then advancing on to 1945. So we're just going to go through here and see what they have. All right, while we're here, let's just take a quick look at some of these bicycles because I'll be honest, I've never seen such a display of German bicycles before. I know that they had bicycle battalions, but here you can see like this one back here with a mount for a Mauser K98. Here's one that is hauling like a little wagon. And if we look back here, here's one that's been blinged out with a little bit of Nazi insignia. And let me just kind of walk back here and see what else catches my eye. Here's one set up with some crutches. So maybe this is for the medic in the unit. Yeah, we also got like this guy hauling what appears to be medical equipment to me. And then if we continue on, here we go. So here's the Red Cross. You see this guy being hauled on a litter. I've never seen anything like this. So right here, we've just stepped foot into the museum and I'm already learning new things. So I guess that the medics in these bicycle battalions like had equipment to haul guys out. Think about how difficult it would be to pedal this dang bike with a wounded soldier behind you on one of these wagons. Like you'd have to have some serious leg power. Anyway, here you can see another one rigged up with some German potato mashers. We've also got like something for what appears to be a mortar team. This is really one of the coolest things I've seen. All right, so if this is how we're starting off, I can only imagine what the rest of this museum is going to look like. We've now moved into the 1940 section of the museum. So the year 1940, May 1940 to be specific, is when the Netherlands is going to be invaded by Germany. So here, of course, we're in the Netherlands, so they're going to be telling the history of their country. What we were looking at is the uniform of a Dutch soldier. And as we've been touring around the Netherlands over the past few days, well, we've been seeing some different things that are connected to the invasion of in 1940. And it's really made me want to learn a little bit more about that story, because as an American, we don't really get exposed to that history as much. And as you can see here, we have yet another bicycle. So I also have with me here today Sander from the YouTube channel Sander VK History and tour company Trails of History. So he's probably going to jump in from time to time because he can actually read Dutch and I cannot, and give us a little bit more context of some of the things that we're looking at.
So during World War II in 1940, when the Germans invaded the Netherlands, our Queen Wilhelmina and her family needed to flee the country. And they did that in this original armored vehicle. They fled with this armored vehicle to an airfield, and from that airfield they went on a plane and fled to England. And from there she would help the resistance and also do broadcast on the radio, which was called Radio Orange. So if you follow me, here we can say our beloved Queen Wilhelmina. And this is a display on an original radio that she would have been talking through towards the Dutch people who were occupied by the Germans to keep the morale up and help the resistance.
This is a pretty cool piece right here. So many of the Dutch, ahead of the German invasion, fled the country, not just as refugees who were going to wait the war out. Many fled the country so that they could fight another day. And this is the uniform of one such figure. This is the uniform that was worn by a Dutch member of the RAF. So we typically think of the RAF being only British or Canadian or Commonwealth forces. But there were members of the Dutch who joined up and then flew missions against the Germans to take back their country during World War II.
So this boat behind here, this is a very special one. I am not originally sure if it is an original one, but these boats were very important during the first days of 1940. Why? Because when the Germans occupied the Netherlands or attacked the Netherlands, a lot of Dutch boys and men didn't want to stay in the Netherlands being occupied by the Germans. So what they would do, they would sail across the channel towards England. So all of a sudden you've probably heard of the Princess Irene Brigade, Dutch armed forces in the British Army, and you've probably also heard of RAF fighters, and which were Dutch squadrons sometimes. Well, those men fled across the channel towards England when Germany invaded, and they joined the British Army. And it is really cool to see this, because this is not a topic that is talked about a lot and not many people know about it.
As the Germans move into the Netherlands and begin their occupation, well, one of the things that is going to emerge out of that is the liquidation of Jewish individuals in this country. Okay, so here you can see a sign that says Jews forbidden, and then of course the Jewish people in this country were forced to wear a Star of David. There you can see it says Jood. Okay, so this is the Dutch version of the Jewish star that many of us are familiar with. We actually have an episode of American Artifact that is going to show some artifacts that are associated with the Holocaust in the Netherlands. All right, here's another one right here. That here in the museum, that this is kind of a creative choice of placing that right in front of a photo of an individual where the star would be. But I want to skip over some of these items to these two. So right here, we are looking at an empty can of Zyklon B, which of course is the poison that was used to execute so many Jewish individuals or Holocaust victims in the camps, places like Auschwitz. But this right here might be one of the most sobering artifacts that I've seen really in any museum. So there was a Jewish resistance fighter by the name of Bill Minko here in the Netherlands who ended up being captured and going to Auschwitz, where he was tattooed with the number 136862. Bill Minko is going to survive that experience, but didn't want that mark on him after the war. So had it surgically removed, and what we are looking at is that flap of skin that was removed from his body that had that tattoo on it. So that, again, is a rather sobering artifact of the Holocaust here.
So everybody has heard of the French resistance, right? Which is very famous. But in the Netherlands, the Dutch resistance is also very, very famous, and hopefully across the world. But this is a perfect example of what the resistance had to deal with during the occupation of the Netherlands. They had to figure out different ways to smuggle food stamps, guns as well. And this is a perfect example. If you come here and you look into the child carriage, the baby would be on top, and the guns would sit below.
So again, continuing with our talk about the Dutch resistance, what we are looking at here are food stamps, ration stamps that were issued during the war. And in order to get information out to people, well, they had these underground newspapers. Now, if anybody would have been caught with these, it would have been bad news. Like one of the papers is called The Truth. All right, so there were several different varieties of this. Okay, also to receive and transmit information, well, they would use radios. Radios strictly forbidden under German occupation. So they had to hide them in books like what you see right here. Okay, we also see a typewriter here, which again was used to get out information and to help communicate with the general population. But one of the things that the Dutch resistance was really going to need was weapons in order to resist and to help with the ground forces once they landed here in the Netherlands. So here we see a couple of different firearms that the British dropped for the Dutch resistance here in the Netherlands. Now, if you were a member of the Dutch resistance and you got caught, that's going to be bad news. So what we are looking at here in this display are a couple of doors from a prison or a jail cell here in the Netherlands where they would hold members of the Dutch resistance. Okay, you can see this club here that they would use to beat individuals if they were captured and interrogated. And this coffin looking thing right here was something that was used as a means of torture and interrogation. So what would happen is you would fill this tank with water, and then if you again have a member of the Dutch resistance or something like that you're trying to extract information out of, the Germans would drop them in this thing and then close the lid. And then as they were struggling and about to reach the point of drowning, well, they would open the door, pull them out, ask them questions. If you don't get any answers, it's back in the tank. All right, so we just made our way through the first part of the museum, and as we go through here, keep in mind, there's no way I can show everything today. There is a crazy amount of information and artifacts here in this museum. But we just entered into this large space, and holy smokes, there are vehicles and artillery pieces and weapons galore in here. I am seeing now why everybody has been telling me that I need to come to this museum. Now this is absolutely wild. I can't even really convey how large this display is, but it is so impressive. What we are looking at is the wreckage of a Lancaster bomber. Again, I have a friend here who has appeared on previous videos, my buddy Paul from Germany, who is just really an amazing historian and researcher and has helped me so much on past projects. He was with us in Vermont when we visited the battlefield there with Jack Moran. But anyway, his specialty is kind of in aircraft and uncovering military wrecks and doing research. So anyway, he might have a little bit more on this that sounds more intelligent than anything that I would say.
So we are standing here in front of the remains of a Lancaster bomber from the Royal Air Force. It was shot down on March 5th, 1945, so not long before the war ended. It was flying a mission to bomb the petrol plants at Gelsenkirchen, in the Ruhr pocket, you could say. And it was probably hit by flak on the way back to England. It crashed in Belgium, in the today's town of Glabeck. And the crew was missing in action until 2017, when they excavated the plane and found the remains of the crew, and they put like the whole remains they excavated here in this exhibition, which is unique in the world. There's no other museum in the world which has a big airplane wreckage on exhibit like this. And they placed all the parts of the plane to the same spots where they were built into the plane. So it's really impressive and really makes you think, because all the 7 guys from the crew, they did not make it out. Probably the engines were on fire. Yeah, they could not get back home. But yeah.
So right here in this display is some drawings of the crew of the Lancaster bomber that we just looked at. So men like William Olson over here on the left, and then Christopher Hogg next to him, and Frank Clark. So these were the crew members of that Lancaster bomber that we just looked at. And then here are some of the personal items that were recovered from the crash site. So we have like the remains of a Mae West life preserver, and we've also got gas mask pieces. Right here are remains of the a parachute that was in there. But yeah, these are the guys who were in that bomber. And one thing that I've failed to mention thus far is that there was a major battle that was fought here at Overloon. So my friend Reed Stevens, who is on the very first video that I ever uploaded to this channel, he was in the 7th Armored Division, was part of that battle, and the 7th Armored Division just got completely wrecked here. And then later, the British were going to come along and push the Germans out. And what we were looking at here is a German Panther that was in that battle. And if we go back here, well, you'll notice that we got some parts missing here on the back end of this tank. So it was hit by a British Piat, and then as the crew of the tank was getting out and trying to escape, they were all killed. But yeah, it's cool enough to have one of these tanks here at the museum, but to know that it's a tank that was part of the battle just makes it even cooler. Now, I mentioned that the 7th Armored was here at Overloon in October of 1944 and just really got hit hard. My friend Reed never talked in depth about it, but said that it was really, really bad. And you know, he lost a good friend here in this area. And what we were looking at here is an American tank from the 7th Armored Division that was knocked out in this battle. Now, my friend Reed, he was in the 23rd Armored Infantry Battalion, was a machine gunner. So you can see how the turret of this tank is a little bit cattywampus here from where it got hit. But yeah, this is really, really amazing that they have all these vehicles here, and that they have some that are connected to some of the local history in World War II. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and say right now, we aren't going to be able to film everything in this museum. There is far too much. So we're just gonna have to pick and choose a little bit, but my goodness, the hype is real on this place. What we were looking at right here, there's an Eric door back there, but what we were looking at here is a Sherman tank that was nicknamed a crab. I've also seen these called a flail tank. So on the front end of these, in order to go through minefields and keep them from blowing up a tank. Well, this piece right here would rotate, and then you would have these spinning chains that would hit anti-tank mines and detonate them before the treads of the tank rolled over them. So this is one of the funny little innovations that they had during the Second World War. But yeah, here's a Sherman crab. All right, we just took a moment to go through an interactive, immersive D-Day experience here at the Overloon Museum, and let me tell you something. It was pretty amazing. I can't show it here on camera, but as you exit this D-Day experience, well, the first thing that you walk out on is this German Tiger tank. So this was one of the most feared tanks of the Allies, and as you can see up there, it looks like this one got dinged by a round from, it could have been a bazooka or another tank. But a lot of veterans of the Second World War, sometimes you'll hear them, talking about, going up against a Tiger tank. And in a lot of cases, it wasn't a Tiger, but this thing had such a reputation that like any German tank was a Tiger to them. So the German Tiger was rigged up with the feared 88 millimeter gun, which was a very powerful round, had armor that was 120 millimeters thick. Now there were only about 1,300, maybe just a little over Tigers that were built in total. And this is one of the few survivors, and is actually functional. So it actually runs. So really cool to see this. And then right next to the Tiger, well, they have a couple of examples of the Sturmgeschütz 3 Ausführung G. I probably just butchered that, but it's more commonly known as the Stug. So the Stug was rigged up on a Panzer III chassis and was a little bit more efficient as a weapon of the Germans. So it had a four-man crew, had a 75 millimeter gun, and as you can see, is a little bit more low to the ground. So it's a little bit more of a squat looking vehicle. But yeah, man, this is insane that they have all this stuff here. I've moved over to a section now that is showing just a crazy display of American vehicles, and mostly what I'm seeing are service vehicles like this tow truck here, and also this vehicle that was nicknamed the Dragon Wagon. So one of the issues, of course, that the Americans had as they were moving through Europe is, tanks being knocked out. So this M26, which was a 12-ton monster 6x6 truck, would be used to pick up these damaged tanks, get them to an area where they could be repaired or where they could be scavenged for parts, and then get right back into the fight. So the Germans, the Tiger tank that we looked at just a moment ago, a little bit over-engineered, if you ask me. Had a tendency to break down. It was also very heavy, so it could get bogged down. And then, in many cases, the Germans had no means of recovering them and getting them back into operation, or at least not as efficiently as the Americans. So, when we're talking about Allied success during the Second World War, well, a lot of that success, even though a lot of attention gets put on the frontline troops, a lot of the success was due to what was happening behind the lines. So here you can see somebody in the Signal Corps that is working on this telephone pole. That's actually what my grandpa did during the Second World War. He was in the Signal Corps and did work like this right here. So yeah, I appreciate that they're not focusing just on the combat element of the Second World War, but also logistics and things that are going on behind the front line. So they have a few aircraft here in the museum as well. One of the examples is this Douglas C-47. So of course these are the aircraft that were used to transport paratroopers to the drop zones in Operation Overlord, Operation Market Garden, and then look down here. So we saw the bike display earlier. I'm just going to kind of walk along here. Look at how ridiculous this is. There's just, for those of you who are motorcycle enthusiasts, there are just motorcycles galore here. I've never seen such a concentration of motorcycles in my life. Yeah, so there's one with an SS license plate on it. Okay, and we just continue on down. Okay, got an Indian motorcycle here. Yeah, this is wild. All right, now this one is for my buddy Paul Woodage because this is his favorite tank. This is a British Churchill. So it would have had a 95 millimeter howitzer gun on it, a couple machine guns. This particular one was knocked out during the battle that took place here around Overloon. So when Market Garden basically failed, the Allies were trying to rig up another way to get across the Maas River. So that's where the battle here around Overloon took place. So the 7th Armored gets hit hard, just pretty much gets wrecked, to be honest with you. And then the British are going to come in. So this tank was from the 2nd Squadron of the 4th Battalion of the Coldstream Guards. Went over a mine in a minefield, which crushed the floor, and the tank ended up burning out and killed 3 of the crew members. But anyway, or maybe 2. It was 2 or 3 of the crew members in this tank were killed, and they're actually buried close by. But anyway, now they have the tank right here in this museum. So what we are looking at right here is something that you literally will not see anywhere else in the world, because this is the only example left in existence. This is a British Challenger tank. So the British Challenger is a tank with a heavy gun. You can kind of see that turret sets up pretty high, maybe a little higher than I would be comfortable with if I was in one of these tank crews. But it has a 17-pound anti-tank gun on top of it, so it's got some heavy firepower, and sits on a Cromwell chassis. The problem was these were a little bit difficult to produce, and when the Sherman Firefly, which also had a 17-pounder, came along, these weren't really needed anymore. So there were only 200 of these produced to begin with. And I love artifacts, but I especially love artifacts that have a story connected to them. And this particular tank was commanded by a Polish general of the Polish 1st Armored Division. His name was General Makzik, and this tank was hit during the Battle of, I'm going to butcher this, Delfzijl. All right. Anyway, here is the grave of General Makzik. But anyway, right there is the world's only example of a British Challenger tank. I may have mentioned this already, but the real reason that we are here today is that we're traveling with Andrew Biggio of the Rifle and 3 veterans of the Second World War. And they're doing a book signing here today, and people are bringing in flags and helmets for the veterans to sign and to shake their hand and to thank them. And just got a heads up that there is a woman here who is 95 years old who was a Dutch citizen during the Second World War and during the German occupation, came all the way here because she wants to personally meet these veterans and thank them and shake their hand.
Ik was 10 jaar. Toen begon de oorlog. En ik was heel bang. En ik zei tegen mijn moeder, wat zal er nu gebeuren? Toen zei mijn moeder, rustig, rustig, rustig. Je wist niet wat er gebeuren zou.
When the war broke out, she had just turned 10. And she was very scared because she heard all the shooting and all the noises of the war, the planes. And she was very scared. So she turned to her mother, "Mother, what is going to happen now? Are we going to, what is going to happen?" And her mother said, "Shh, nothing's going to happen. Just take it easy, just take it easy."
Yes.
En maybe misschien iets vertellen over de vliegtuigen in de lucht.
Toen ik was 's nachts en er waren, hoe heet die dingen?
During the night, you could hear the planes, the British and American planes flying over, and you could see them being caught in the cross beams of the German lights. And you saw the tiny plane, which probably B-17 or B-24, being lit up by the Germans, and sometimes hear them shooting and hear them going down.
Wow.
And then, stuff like that. Bombs being dropped by a plane that was attacked to lower its load, and those bombs were dropped in Zaandam as well, in the pre-harbor, but also on the city. That was pretty intense stuff. And her brother, her oldest brother, was of a working age, so he was commandeered to work in Germany against his will. But then he could still go home every now and then for a holiday. So what did he do? He didn't go back to Germany, and he went to the province of Drenthe near Westerbork, which was the German concentration camp where the Jews were expelled from. And he went down underground by a Boer Jansen. And that's how he survived. But the Germans, they came looking in the night, banging on the doors, and their father, who was like an Amsterdam type guy, he was short, but for the devil may care attitude. So he said, where's your son? Where's your son? He should come back. And he said, "Where's my son? You took him. You tell me where he is. I don't know where he is. You go." Well, basically, dirty word. And they went off in the night and they never came back. So her brother basically survived inside of Westerbork.
Westerbork, ja. Concentratiekamp, bij het concentratiekamp Westerbork.
And basically, the most important story I think my mother will be able to tell is that, will people never grow up and will they never learn of the stupidity, the sheer stupidity of war? And she's very, very, very grateful to Allied soldiers, never mind the nationality, who put an end to Nazism and who liberated Western Europe.
So what happened to her family?
Her family, they all survived. Part of them were Jewish. They also went to ground. They partly survived, not all of them. Interesting detail, she was born the 15th of April 1930, which is also 15th of April is also the date of the liberation by the British of Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. And there her old boss, later on her boss, turned out to have been. They were deported to Auschwitz. They were separated, man and husband. Both families from both sides were completely exterminated. Then they went their separate ways, different camps, and at the end of the war they came back both to Bergen-Belsen, not knowing of each other. And there they met. She was a sister taking care of people, and he was broken down, he couldn't move hardly, and they carried him out in a wheelbarrow. He was hardly weighing something like 33 kilos. And that turned out to be her later on boss, and they stayed friends for the rest of their lives.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes.
So over here in this corner of the museum, they have just all kinds of different examples of flak guns that were used during the Second World War. And then they also have some things, showing examples of different mines and different artillery. And I'm going to tell you something. What I am about to show you just might make you evacuate your bowels because it is crazy. Take a look at this wild collection of artillery shells. Okay, so here we are looking at Army ammunition. Okay, and then if we move on down, I mean, look at this. They got all of the boxes. We're just going to do a quick walkthrough here. All right, here we are looking at Navy ammunition. We got this big old honking shell right here. If we go over here, there are examples of, there's caps, there's fuses, there are mortar rounds. Okay, here are a whole bunch of different examples of mines. Okay, so you can see some of the glass mines there. All right, and then if we continue on, I'm seeing a bunch of different Panzerfausts. All right, and then we start getting into the German bombs and German artillery, including some weird looking stuff that I've honestly never seen before. All right, and then again, just moving on here, doing a quick walkthrough of all of this, we get to more examples of artillery that was used during the Second World War. It just goes on and on and on. It's absolute insanity. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is going to be truly jaw-dropping. And it is associated with the German railway gun. Now, this is absolutely wild. I've never seen anything like this before, never seen an example of what we were looking at here. This is an example of the ammunition that would be fired out of a German railway gun. So the railway gun was just this over-the-top piece of artillery that the Germans developed. The only time that it was used in a military sense was in Sevastopol. The gun that was used was nicknamed Dora and is an 80-centimeter gun and would hurl this massive shell that was supposed to be able to penetrate the ground at a depth of 32 meters. Now, the stress on the gun was so much that they could only pump out like 100 rounds before the barrel had to be replaced. And I've got Sander with me here, and I'm gonna have him step over and stand next to this just to get a size comparison. So Sander is probably 5'9" or 5'10", depending on what gas station he's walking out of. And you can see just what a beast of a shell this is. Okay, now as I've already mentioned a couple of times, we have 3 World War II veterans here today from the United States, but we also have a Belgian veteran who is here with us today. So I'm gonna see if we can maybe get a few moments with him and get a little bit of a brief overview of his story.
Next to me is sitting Jeff Seelen. Jeff Seelen is a World War II veteran from the 3rd Battalion of Belgian Fusiliers. And Jeff enlisted mainly because his father and his brother were deported to Buchenwald after they were arrested by the SS because they thought that they had committed some acts of resistance, and therefore they were arrested. That was the reason that Jeff enlisted in the 3rd Battalion of Belgian Fusiliers.
So what was his role during the war?
His role during the war was the Belgian Fusiliers mainly did guard duties in the beginning, also during the Battle of the Bulge. He was on guard duty in one of the bridges, so that because they didn't have that many combat training, and because of that they could assist the Allied troops like the British and like the Americans with all kind of supporting duties. And in 1945, in January 1945, they went along with the 2nd British Army into Germany. And they crossed the border here near Venlo, all along, and they, with the 2nd British Army, where they had those guard duties, and they performed like sweeping the forests and looking for German soldiers that stayed behind. One of the interesting anecdotes is that he captured one of the Flemish SS soldiers because they noticed that someone was speaking Dutch, and they asked him, "Why are you here?" And well, they interrogated him, and after that they found out that he was with the Belgian SS volunteers, and they could arrest him. So that was one of the things they did as well. But they went all the way. The battalion was completely divided into all kinds of squadrons and platoons, and they went all the way up to Hamburg, Bremen, and so on, along with the British 2nd Army.
All right, we just popped out of the museum, and I'll tell you what, to everyone who suggested that museum to me, thank you. That place was awesome, and as I was talking about through the whole thing, I wasn't even showing a fraction of what they have in there. And also to be here on a day when there are veterans and other eyewitnesses to history was just a bonus. But anyway, got some more places that we are going to be hitting on this trip, and I think the bus is about ready to leave without me, so I'm going to shut this off and head on out.